a pleasure to be here in this magnificent building. As the son of a junior high school librarian, it feels very much at home to be in the Library of Congress. And you notice we are in a room reserved for the members of Congress, a room obviously designed in an era before 60 Minutes investigated the privileges of U.S. congressmen. It's one heck of a place. So what's philanthropy? When I was a kid, there was a television program called The Millionaire, where a never-seen billionaire named John Beresford Tipton sat in his amazingly opulent study and wrote checks for $1 million as a kind of social studies experiment to see what it would mean. In those days, $1 million was a lot of money. Ambrose Bierce, a curmudgeonly writer of another century who wrote the Devil's Dictionary, defined the philanthropist this way. Leonard, you may want to tune this out. A rich and usually bald old gentleman who has trained himself to grin while his conscience is picking his pocket. The entire thrust of today is to prove how wrong Ambrose Bierce either was or is. Because today you're going to hear from people across every range, age, race, creed, gender, many with resplendent heads of hair. And more to the point, driven not in any sense by guilt, but by a determination to do something that really works. And if there is one theme of today, it is to hear from a great number of people from different backgrounds and different interests, all of whom are devoted to finding out how to make things work in an age when new technologies exist, when new methods of communication exist. And really the basic theory today is if these new devices and new ways of thinking have upended everything from tyrannical regimes in the Middle East to the whole communications business to everything that we do in our daily commerce and communication, why not in philanthropy? Because that number that David cited from that Harvard Business School, that $100 billion is wasted every year, is linked to the observation of a professor at the Harvard Business School named Mark Porter, who basically said that philanthropy is decades behind business in applying rigorous thinking to the use of money. We hope to show you today that that also is no longer true. We have many talented people here. The one resource we are very limited with is time. So I want you to forgive me in advance if my tactlessness, well known to my friends and family, is employed in the business of keeping people to time. And we have, in every session, carved out at least half of that session for interaction. And I would only ask, plead, and eventually beg you all that we can come to a common understanding of the meaning of, say, a question, because it will make for a lot more interaction and a lot more information. So to begin with, what is this day about? From an overview, we have Susan Raymond with us. She is the Executive Vice President of Changing Our World. She comes to that post from experience at AID and at the World Bank. And I think she's going to show you in words and images why this is not your father and mother's philanthropy anymore. Susan, come on up.
Thank you, Jeff. I must say that after Congressman's presentation, I'm very intimidated to be up here. But I want to welcome you to my home. This is, in fact, my home, my second home. I spent innumerable months in the reading room of the Library of Congress doing my dissertation. So this has both pleasant memories for me and memories of agony for me. When there was still a card catalog that you had to use. We're here to ask two questions. Actually, there are probably three questions. The third question, I'm sure, is in your minds at 9:15 this morning, and let's dispose of that question right away. Yes, there is enough coffee in those two urns for a second cup. The other two questions we're actually trying to ask here are, number one, why are we here? And number two, why is it important that we are here? So let me start with the first one. Why are we here? Growth has been the 3-decade-long theme of the nonprofit sector in this country. In the mid-1980s, which some of us can remember, some of us won't, Leonard's granddaughter, I'm sure, but some of us, Leonard, remember the mid-1980s, there were 300,000 nonprofits in this country. Today, there are 1.4 million. The nonprofit sector not only represents a complex service network, it also represents nearly 10% of the workforce in this country. Indeed, the rate of growth of nonprofits, and this is really an extraordinary chart, the rate of growth of nonprofits has exceeded the rate of growth in giving. And we have created nonprofits pretty consistently over the last 3 decades, irrespective of giving. But what is really striking about where we are right now in this country is not so much the growth in the nonprofit sector. It is, what is truly striking is the way in which new ideas and new approaches are completely reshaping what we actually mean by engagement in social needs. In part, this is driven by age. In part, it's driven by demography and the structure of wealth. When he began to be serious about his philanthropy, Andrew Carnegie was in his early 50s. Life expectancy of a male in the United States at that point in time was 54. So he was, for all intents and purposes, at the end of his life. When Bill Gates formed his foundation, he was 38. Jeff Skoll was 34. The average life expectancy of a male in the United States is now 78. Therefore, a new generation of philanthropists is younger when they begin their social engagement, and they expect to continue that engagement for many, many decades to come. They have many years ahead of them, and innovation is what they're focused on, because this new generation of philanthropists and entrepreneurs is actually the source of the innovation that has changed the way we work, changed the way we play, changed the way we socialize, changed the way we live our lives. They are comfortable with change because they have taken that comfort into the nonprofit sector, creating entirely new organizations, entirely new modes of action, entirely new funding strategies to address what once would have been issues of charity. We are at what I call the end of definitions. What we mean by private initiative for the common good now includes not only $5 in the fireman's boot, but all manner of hybrid structures and financial flows that include not just operating funds, but actual sources of capital. Capital for sustained social effort, social outcomes that come from commercial profit, and the use of technology to democratize engagement in the social good. The architecture of these new definitions is more complex than the architecture of the past. 30 years ago, I'm actually very proud of myself for this slide. I'm not actually an artist, I'm an economist, but this took a lot of work for an economist. Just watch. 30 years ago, we had federal resources and state resources topped off by a touch of charity. You ready? Everybody ready? Oops. Thank you. The new architecture is infinitely more complex, and it is infinitely more robust. It is true that it's going to be harder to clean and maintain, but if the representative were here, he would approve of this architecture for his chickens. We not only have now charity, we have all manner of resource mobilization. We have program-related investing, mission-related investing, impact investing, social enterprise, corporate social engagement, e-philanthropy, mobile donations, any number of new opportunities. But what is important to understand is this is not random. We are actually watching be created an arc of innovation. At the base of that arc of innovation, we have, and will always have, thank God, and always rely on what is fundamental to the American spirit, and that is charitable grants. We're still anchored in the pure charity of the American people, their willingness to give of their own time and resources to help others. This will forever anchor our resource commitment to social good in this country. But, and here the Alliance for Global Good comes in, we are watching philanthropists, those engaged in social action, begin to innovate up a curve of change. So now I'm going to press this button, and nothing happens. See, it doesn't work. The first change we have up that arc is actually an effort, as was described by David, a real effort to try to take traditional resources and generate efficiency. So you have collaboratives emerging of philanthropists, collaboration among nonprofits, collaboration among foundations. The second move up that arc, the second move up that arc is when we still have philanthropic resources, but those resources are behaving in a way that is demanding return, that is demanding impact. We have venture philanthropy that is still using giving, still using charity, but beginning to expect some monetized, some quantitative social return on those resources. The next move up that arc is still philanthropic resources, but instead of being gifts, they are loans. They are trying to establish a return that comes back to philanthropy so you can increasingly regenerate resources for philanthropy. And the final, at least now final, top of that arc of change is actually when we have new resources that are not philanthropic resources moving on to the social commons. J.P. Morgan is here to talk about impact investing. That's actual commercial grade capital that is moving into commercial grade investments, that's producing social change as a consequence. So we've moved from pure charity all the way up that arc of change. And what's important that we're going to hear today is that those do not substitute for one another. All of this builds on each other. All of this builds innovation. And as a result, we are turning social problem solving in this country into social finance. We remain and will always be a nation of givers. We are becoming a nation of philanthropic innovators. So question 2, why is this important? Why should we care? Nearly 200 years ago, scientist Louis Pasteur was asked why he bothered. Someone said, so much of discovery really is by chance. You spend so much time in the laboratory, you invest so much money in your science, and in fact, discovery actually comes out of luck. And he said, yes, that is in fact true. Chance did result in discovery. But, he said, chance favors the prepared mind. Innovation also favors the prepared mind. We need to understand these new instruments and the new philosophies about social engagement that they represent. We need to understand how and where they apply, and how and where they do not apply. We need to understand how they can generate significant amounts of private resources for problem solving that are superlative complements, not substitutes, for pure charity. We need also to understand their limitations. It is possible to be too clever by half. We need to understand when and how they do not work, and especially where and how they can contribute to the growth of private leadership in our communities in ways that solve problems and create vibrant, prosperous places to live and work. The question of leadership is particularly important because, my friends, philanthropy is not about the money. Money is simply a measure, a poor measure of the transaction. It is a poor measure of that arc of change. Philanthropy really is about the commitment of private individuals to the good of their communities, whether that community is local or global or both. So whatever happens to innovation in the money, the deeper question is, how will innovation create leadership in our communities? This meeting is going to cycle through these issues in 5 groups. We're going to begin with some concrete cases of people who are actually down in the weeds innovating, who are innovating along that arc of change, from pure charity all the way up to enterprise. We're then going to move from there to understand the reality of the role of technology in all of this innovation, how it is powering innovation and how it is creating democratization along this arc, how it is empowering leadership along the arc of change. At lunch, we're going to discuss how innovation affects the critical needs of women in our global community and how innovation is becoming part of women's leadership in philanthropy. We're then going to talk about money. Specifically, some examples of the forms of combining commercial and investment approaches with social impact that really are moving us up to that apex on that arc of change. Finally, we're going to step back and be critical. We're going to look critically at innovation, especially how it can or perhaps cannot help us address problems that require patient capital, because those problems have long time periods in their solutions, or because those are problems we actually do not understand. If we do not understand the core causes of a problem, it is very difficult to prove impact. So we have a set of problems that are so complex that one doesn't know what to do with them on this arc of change. And of course, we're going to welcome the Honorable Michael Bloomberg, Mayor of the great city of New York, to talk about innovation in his own philanthropy. What do we want to achieve at the end of the day? First, we hope everyone will learn something. Knowledge is the core of innovation. We cannot develop even better ideas if we do not understand the ideas that are in front of us. Second, we hope that innovation will become the byword for thinking about philanthropy. How do we become better? How do we become better? How do we get better ideas? How do we push the apex of that arc of change even further out with new resource ideas and new approaches to problem solving and resource mobilization? How can we keep moving forward with innovation? Third, we hope that the power of innovation will attract new individuals to philanthropy and to this space. That is really the truly exciting thing about innovation, and I know that that is something that is deeply at the core of Leonard Kaplan's creation of the Alliance for Global Good and his commitment to the Alliance. It's deeply embedded in the mission of the Alliance. How do we get new people excited about philanthropy? How do we get the next generation excited about being part of the problem solving that the Representative Lewis described? How do we get young people involved? The young and perhaps not so young are drawn to these new ways because they are new and because they hold promise for opening up new horizons of problem solving. New tools will attract ever more philanthropists and new generations of wealth to our societal commons. And that is what's truly exciting about this arc of change. It is what will attract the next generation to problem solving. Those are our hopes for the meeting. But more than anything, we hope that you will enjoy the day, and we hope that you will have many questions and many criticisms and many leading comments for all of us to help us push the thinking this day into the top of the arc of innovation and into problem solving for this world. Thank you.